Well, hello, Transparent Church and friends. This is Pastor James with the Word of the Day. Today I want to spotlight Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5 from the New Living Translation, where we find these words. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Well, as we get started this day, I want to use for a theme today, called according to his purpose. God has a purpose, as we shared on yesterday, for all of our lives, created for a purpose. But when we're created for a purpose, we also are called for a purpose. And we know more clearly is that shared and evident than in the first chapter of Jeremiah, when God begins to show up and speak to Jeremiah to clarify his call, letting him know that Jeremiah, I had a plan before you were even on the planet. In other words, before your mother and father even got together, I knew you. I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. In other words, what God speaks to Jeremiah is the fact that his purpose created him a body so that he could do the work God has called him to do, to be anointed, to be set out, set apart, ordained as a prophet. So Jeremiah, he says, don't tell me you're too young to do what I called you to do, because I gave you a purpose to do what I called you to do. And so today, hear these words that not only are you created for purpose, but you've been called for his purpose. And our greatest challenge is to find out what God's purpose is for our lives. Maybe you're not Jeremiah and you're not called to be a prophet to the nations, but perhaps you're called to be a principal in the school. Perhaps you're called to be a parent to take care of the next president. Perhaps you have a calling that you need to claim, because God has a purpose for you. And our job is to find out his passion and purpose, rather, for our lives. And when we do find his purpose, it does give us passion. So today, believe and know that God has a calling for your life. And I pray that God allows you to find it so you can fulfill it. God bless you, and Lord willing, we'll see you next time.